Shivesh Boodhram. I am a non-incentive design strategist, design maturity advocate, but I'm currently working at Vodacom as a senior product design lead in the financial services space. So I look after the insurance portfolio. So all the insurance experiences I'm responsible for, or you are going to be experiencing some of my designs. I also have quite a vast background in consulting in different industries and also the design industry overall. So I started off I think I've touched every single design discipline at an execution level. But that's what LinkedIn will tell you. The human side of me is that I am a girl dad. I have 2 daughters. I've been sleep deprived for a good 2 years, which is an interesting change because the pre-parent version of me was someone that was a perfectionist, you would know. And I would wait until the stars align before I create something, or create something with all my sort of effort, and then I would release it into the world. But now I actually have to I had to change that and become someone that's chasing imperfect consistency. So every single day I move forward by doing something or making some progress. And that's a little bit difficult for me to comprehend. So that's why I'm saying I'm a recovering perfectionist. Eventually, I'll get back to being a perfectionist. Yeah, and a couple of things that I like to do is go-karting. I think that's something that I try to do quite often. And then 5-a-side soccer, which I'm keen to start again, if anyone is keen as well. And then I'm a sneaker addict. I'm not wearing any sneakers today, but yeah, I have a collection. That's quite large. Cool. And today we are going to be talking about 5 sort of areas, right? I want to spend a bit of time talking about how design is perceived in different organizations, and it'll be good to get your perspectives on that in your respective fields. Then I want to talk about what I've experienced at Converge, basically what all the leaders are saying. And then we'll talk a little bit about our core strength, which is understanding humans, right? And then my perspective on where I think we are headed and how does design become strategic again. And if we have some time, we'll do some Q&A as well. So I want to actually hand over to the room and to the people online and show of hands, who is not a designer? Okay, I want to ask a question to common or no, right? When people in your organization say we need design, what do they usually mean?
They are looking for creative outputs.
Okay.
In my world, it's the person that needs to make a tender document look amazing. But so, because I work with designers in a design team, they really know that there's a client requirement and it is to come up with something absolutely breakthrough.
So it's more on the execution layer, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tom?
So when I was at Deloitte with you, we talked about system designs rather than creative designs. So that would be very much about how systems are designed to create an experience for somebody or to make a decision in terms that relates to that person. So yeah, I think there's a different, swing to what design means.
Yeah. Then I'm going to move on to a different question, right? This is for everyone. Why do you think UX still struggles for strategic influence? For online, I can't see anyone, so Mr. SD.
Yeah, there's a hand raised online, so you can go, Ning. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, you are. Okay, so to your question, I think what most organizations think design is, it's essentially just retrofitting beautiful outputs to ugly or broken processes, right? So I think in terms of the strategic value of design itself, it's severely underutilized in many organizations because of that understanding that, hey, design is that team that makes things to pop. There isn't an understanding that we are able to connect human insights, you are able to connect the processes and align those two things in a way that delivers value to both business and customers. So that's unfortunately something that means we won't be at the strategic table. In fact, we will be called at a much later point in time, as opposed to being invited when the product is being designed at the early stage.
That's quite a relative insight. I think I've experienced it many times in my career. Does anyone else want to go?
UX is inconvenient. It's inconvenient because it's difficult to visualize and often only gets implemented after all the boxes get checked. Does a product look good? Does it meet the business needs? Is it profitable? Is it viable? Is it feasible? All of the other things that have measurable outputs. But UX is inconvenient because it often interferes with those metrics in the sense that, you know, you may not be able to cut corners to be able to do something. You may need to redesign something to remove friction or to make something more understandable or more accessible to different demographics. And so it's a headache for everyone who's not a UX designer, because it often means undoing before redoing or doing for the first time. And yeah, I think that's kind of the understanding of it. Also, people don't really know what it is. Even when you work in industry, it's like, oh, you do product design. No, you don't.
So you make screens.
Yeah. No.
There's another hand online. I don't know if you want to take.
I think Yaz also had her hand up.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I think UX, how do you put a value to it? So if you're a business, you're looking for revenue. That's their main objective. They want to make money. And with UX, it's like something like Nicole says, it's intangible sometimes, where you might be putting in effort to enhance the user experience for something that doesn't directly generate revenue, but it has strategic influence for the whole experience with that company. So it's difficult to put a metrics of success for UX until it's kind of ruined. Yeah, then you'll start feeling it.
The hand online.
I feel like I found my people while
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
If you want to unmute and just. Yeah.
Yes, thanks. Morning, evening, everyone. I was actually gonna add on to what was just being said by all the speakers. They hit it on the nail. But from my side, which is very interesting, is that I've noted that a lot of businesses will say, I'm invested in UI and UX, but then only say it at a very surface level. So when you then join the team, you find yourself assuming that you're going to be doing UI and UX audits, and then you have to then justify the value of those things. And they then lean more towards things like the marketing metrics versus the experiential metrics. And that's what I believe like UX actually focuses a lot on, is, you know, that first-hand experience. And justifying something as simple as a focus group sometimes feels like a headache versus saying, no, listen, look at the metrics we've got from Google.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll just add something. So I think for me, I think it's always like UX always has a very narrow focus on how things look. But I think design is a lot more about how things work, and the focus is not on that enough. And also I think like designers sometimes struggle to articulate or to translate the business value of what they do to the revenue impact.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's intangible. And you also have to kind of be good at maths to do that. And to also have proven like examples of how it does that and the impact it has. And I don't think we do that enough. And like, are we even at those, like in those conversations where the strategy is being formed? And how do we, like, are we there? Like the only way to have an influence is if we're actually in those conversations and know people that are in those conversations. That's just my 2 cents.
All very valid points, right? And what I'm hearing is that we obviously all work at different places and there's different levels of maturity and design understanding in your organizations. But I can appreciate the nuances to your experiences, right? And the perspectives that you have. So let me move forward. There's no other questions. I mean,
No.
answers here.
It's just a statement,
Yeah.
response, yeah.
Just that there's also a misunderstanding of what experience design is beyond the known artifacts, such as UI. And therein lies the challenge of maturity, which I think nicely goes into your next.
So we're going to jump into my view on how design is perceived, right? And the reason why I'm starting with this is because how design is perceived is how it determines where design sort of is invited. So at which level, at what stage of a project or in an organization. Bear with me, I had a long day and I'm sleep deprived. Okay, so usually when an experience performs badly, right, it's really quick to label it, right? It could be a UX problem, an adoption problem, a leadership problem, etc. Sometimes it is, right? But sometimes it's also the tangible layer that you spoke about, which is that interface. When people can see something that's tangible and it's labeled as it's not working, it's easy to blame just that piece. But often the interface is not the real problem. The interface is just where the problem becomes visible, right? A confusing journey could be caused by disconnected teams, people working in silos. Personalization could be, or bad personalization could be caused by fragmented data. I know in my space specifically, we have different data teams and we have different understandings of customers, but we don't necessarily leverage all of it in one space. But we all have the same vision. We want to deliver the best customer experience. And then there's also, a poor onboarding flow, which might be caused by unclear business rules. But I think for me, a key idea is this, right? A bad experience often is not a screen problem. It is a system problem showing up on screen. So I just want you to kind of sit with that. We are often in environments, and because of our own sort of motivations and our own sort of goals in our careers, we don't challenge the system, right? We just follow the rules because we want to make a good impression, and we also want to just sort of, be successful. Okay. And that feeds into my next slide. I just recently read an article by a gentleman called Ken Giami. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he is a founder and CEO of the African Leadership Organization. And he wrote something that really kind of stayed with me, right? He argued that Africa doesn't have a leadership shortage or a talent shortage. It has a design problem. And often you find that capable people are working inside of systems that were never geared to scale and perform outside of what they were designed to do. So, and we are living in times where things are constantly changing, and we need to challenge those decisions, those legacy systems, all these sort of things that keep us in a box. Design traditionally allows you to think outside of the box, but we are forced to think specific way just based on how things were decided higher up, right? Sorry, I just have to, okay. So I think a question then arises. Are we designing the conditions for better outcomes, or are we just polishing the symptoms of a system that is stunting our growth or our opportunity and potential? Okay. Now I want to move into the history of design, the way I see it and the way I've sort of seen it shift on social media in the last 2 years. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the hype around AI and how design is dead, and with every single post or every second post, design is dead, Figma's dead, Pro's gonna take your job, stuff like that. But I have a different view. When I look at these posts, I actually try to look at the deeper meaning and the deeper signals through the AI slop or generated posts. And I try to listen to leaders in the industry and people who actually have a say in design, who actually have runs on the board, right? So we've made excellent progress at many things, right? Which is screens, flows, components, design systems, and UI optimization. And those things matter, right? Because that's the tangible layer. That's how we kind of proved ourselves, and that's why people like us in corporate. But somewhere along the line, design became way too close to delivery, right? And we became less involved in bigger conversations about what decision are we actually making that affects the business? What customer behavior are we responding to? What systems are creating this experience, and what outcome are we trying to change? This is where design lost strategic power, but not because it became less valuable, but because it became defined too narrowly. They were saying that correctly. Yeah. Okay, so generally we sit, or often we sit at the end of a project, at the execution layer. All the big business decisions were made, and then we come in and make things look pretty and we make it usable, but we work within that system, and then we hand over to dev, and dev develops it, and sometimes it's amazing and sometimes it's not. Okay. But I just want to talk about how did we get here in the last sort of 20 years, right? This is an article, this slide is inspired by an article from a senior design consultant named Peter Mayholtz, who he focuses on improving design effectiveness in organizations. And he's kind of just mapped out how design kind of succeeded its way into irrelevance, and not necessarily irrelevance, but into that space where we only are viewed at an execution level, right? So in the mid-2000s, it was actually quite booming because design entered into the business space, and it was seen as a real competitive advantage. We had the iPhone launching in 2007. We had a lot of design-centric startups that were getting attention. Human-centered labs were becoming influential. And there was a strong belief that businesses placed people at the center of decision-making. If they placed people at the center of decision-making, they could create better products, stronger differentiation, and real commercial value. And that was a really nice time, right? Because it's something that the world hasn't seen yet, and we had a lot of momentum. So after the success of that, we scaled into the early 2010s, and large organizations like IBM and Capital One started to just grow design teams at a rapid pace, and they were growing like specialist teams into hundreds and thousands of designers, right? And that growth also was a win, but it also changed the shape of the role. And around the same time, Agile became a dominant delivery model, right? And designers were often embedded into project teams and basically delivering on those projects. So we kind of shifted from business conversations to delivery conversations. And that's how our focus kind of narrowed. It became less about shaping the system and more about supporting the sprint. And I think, okay, yes, it looks like you experienced that. I know I experienced that a lot. Does anyone else experience that in design, specifically consulting? Yeah. And then 2012, we had the rise of the product designer. I think that's when the role kind of came into play, right? And this was a person that was a unicorn that understood the end-to-end design process, the end-to-end software development lifecycle. So they brought a lot of value to teams, but they also made design synonymous with production. They further went into that sort of box that we created for ourselves, right? Then we moved into the sort of post-pandemic stage after, all the layoffs, the arrival of the AI movement. It became clear to us that design didn't actually have a seat at the table anymore. We are not being included in executive conversations, and that's because when executives were looking at growth efficiency, cost pressure, and core business problems, we weren't necessarily seen as a strategic partner anymore. we were just seen as an execution capability. And now in 2026, we're seeing something that's quite interesting. I don't know if anyone will share my view on this, but the flow of design quality has risen, right? So we're seeing a lot of polished interfaces. UIs are looking great, but we are losing that sort of meaningful aspect to it. Things are not being distinctive anymore. Things are not standing out anymore. We're seeing like a mediocrity of just interfaces being rolled out. And I think AI speaks directly to that. So there is a genuine risk with the associated AI hype, right? Like I mentioned earlier, people are going crazy online with AI slop and posts that are being generated. And everyone is scrambling to try and get on that boat. But if you just take a step back and look at the core reason for being a UX person, right? It's to focus on human behavior. You need to think about systems. You need to think about how logic works, contextual understanding, and decision architecture, which sounds fancy, but it's not that difficult to do.
What is that?
It's more like thinking about how logic works, right? But end to end. It's a lot of process mapping, a lot of
Okay.
You know, I love a good process.
Yeah.
Process map. Okay. So I think, look, this is a controversial sort of topic. I think a lot of people will disagree with me on the AI hype and where things are headed. But I think the opportunity is not to compete with AI. It's to use AI at that execution layer to free up time so you can be in a strategic conversation, right? Simply. Get the easy automated work done and then get back in the seat talking to your execs and the people higher. Okay. So I'm going to move into, there's one more slide here. So to sum that all up, we are saying that design is still too often measured by what it produces, not by what the business, by what it helps the business understand. I'm going to pause there before I move into the next section. Does anyone have any feedback on what you've just heard?
How is that?
Oh, cool.
Go for it. Kenny?
Sure. You know what? As you were speaking, I was just like, yes, preach. And I think for me, it's the reality is that design is going to be disruptive, right? It's going to be changed. And because there's that understanding that design is what produces UI, a lot of people that are stuck at that execution layer will be challenged to actually grow. And the problem is that you'll find even these layoffs that we're seeing, people are actually getting moved out, and that's due to the misunderstanding of what the full spectrum of our work is. And as you were talking, it reminded me of there's a lady who speaks a lot of this, and she once spoke about the two shifts that are going to happen as a result of AI coming into our world. And the first one is that there will be that production element whereby the production of screens themselves, that will no longer be the output that we create, but instead we will be shifted a level up. And the people that actually take that route are the ones that will actually go back to the tenets of what experience design actually produces, which is being custodians of humans and actually understanding how they interact with these various systems. So it is both an interesting time for people that are going to take that path, and a sad time for those that only measure themselves based on the quality of their UI.
You're making me smile. Go for it, Anoka.
So I'm in such an interesting situation at the moment where I am working with a design team, and the design team at the client don't have a seat at the executive table for the very reason that they're in delivery execution mode. So what we're helping them do is elevate their position to define the North Star of the next future of where this product is going to be. But I also noticed that there isn't an understanding of measurement. So the measurement of UX and what we'll do. So is it the net promoter score? Is it improving adoption? Is it enabling the next best action for uptake, etc.? And I think if the businesses could understand, or we could bring closer why we're designing, what it can offer in terms of value, and how we go about doing it, then we can bring others on the journey in terms of executives. And then one of my designers, the UI guy, he's actually looking at the design components. And I love what he said. He says, your design is nutritious, but not delicious. And it is 8 years old, and they're not actually keeping up, so it's iOS 17 or 8-year-old opportunity that they thought was the best thing. It's actually quite interesting to move from a place of delight to disruption. And I don't think that we have articulated that in the business context enough.
I also just want to add, so I like the thing where you said the issues in the organization show up in the interface. And this got me thinking, I wonder if you just looked at an organization's interfaces and if you could diagnose its health, just from using it as a mirror. That was quite interesting. And then I also I also think what you said about the systems as well. And that I think what I find is that people sometimes take the systems around them for granted, they think this is the box I'm in and this is how everything works, and they're happy to stay with it. So while we do need systems change, we also, I think, need people that can also start questioning the systems more as well, to create that change. And I think that for me is sometimes lacking. People are just happy to sort of go along with things.
Yeah. It's often the case.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Good. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy on getting your perspective because it makes me feel confident about what I'm going to present. Okay, so yeah, like I mentioned before, it was about a month ago where I attended Converge Africa, and I had the opportunity to be a panelist and actually talk about search, evolution, forecasting, and personalization, right? So it was an interesting sort of experience, and I went in there sort of just ears open. I just wanted to hear perspectives and understand what people were saying. And people spoke about a lot of different things, right? Like behavioral understanding, contextual relevance, AI orchestration, all of these things that, some of these things go over my head, but I was listening just to understand, because that's what I do best. Yeah, some predictive systems, search evolution, like I mentioned. And then what was quite interesting to me was this concept of one-to-one experiences that some people spoke about. And eventually, well, if I were to summarize that, it's basically understanding customer context and delivering an experience based on what you understand, right? But you need to basically know the context. You need to know what content to push to them, what's relevant at that moment, and then you need to get your timing right. And this is what people are struggling with. So across sort of the overall user journey, people were talking about payments, they were talking about sort of e-commerce, all these different points in the user journey, and how AI is helping them sort of increase or help their business. But no one's actually sitting back and thinking, this is one end-to-end experience. How do we connect all of this together and create a better overall situation, right? And yeah, I think what I want to say is I started to hear this connected story, and people were talking about user context, and that's kind of where something clicked in my head, because I had this idea a few years ago, which I'll talk about in a bit later. And I think Anoka and Carmen will relate to that, but just, yeah, let me get to it. So the shift that I've seen, right, is that we are moving from demographics. So our current understanding of customers is currently like a blanket approach. We create these demographics where we look at age, income, segment, which products they're holding. And those things are useful, and it's been useful to date, right? That's kind of how we determine our personas and how we sort of deliver our products into the market. but the biggest shift now is from demographics to behavior, because behavior actually tells us what people are doing at any given time, right? And there's a few signals that we could use to leverage to figure that out, and people are not fully utilizing that. I don't know if you can see from there, it's very small on my side, but there's things like app usage, payment behavior, mobility patterns, timing habits is also quite interesting. And a lot of organizations have the data, but it's all fragmented in different places, right? And we don't actually connect it to anything. We just kind of sit in our silos, and there's an exec meeting, and we have to create a report, and then everyone has to cover themselves in that meeting, right? It's just the the what do you call this? The behavior of corporate. Yeah. So I think a question here, right, is that we could start asking is, based on what we know about a customer, like what does the signal tell us about that moment, the intent and uncertainty or next best action, based on what we have available. So I want to move into the next section. We've spoken about how design is perceived. I think we all kind of agree what, how design is perceived. We've spoken about what leaders are asking for, and that is a contextual understanding of customers. So our understanding of customers now need to evolve, right? We can't be doing the same things we were doing the last 5 years. We need to figure out how to change that. And luckily for us, a lot of us are designers. This is where we excel. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about this was taken from the Spin Trend 26 report. I think it was Visa and Discovery. Yeah. And what they're saying here is that us South Africans are highly contextual people, right? And they're not just price sensitive, they are value intelligent, which means when we are making decisions, we are comparing, we are looking for rewards, we are looking where we can get, where we can leverage different services to get the most value out. I know in the telco space, right? And those of you that have worked in telco, you've probably seen this. But what we see there is customers are using multiple different SIM cards, sometimes 3 to 4 SIM cards from different providers to get the benefits of all of them. And they just swap these things out through the month. And that's just a behavior that people have. I think trust is also a big deal. There's a lot of customers that are they are really they are careful with their money. There was a ex-colleague of mine that he done a piece of research that he posted that just stuck with me. And he was talking about some customers actually delete their banking apps after use because they don't want anything to happen to their money. They might be traveling to different, uncertain places. They might have been in uncertain environments. So that's just a behavior they sort of inherited. So if our customers are already making decisions contextually, the question is whether our digital experiences can keep up. Because if our experiences are still generic, badly timed, and disconnected, it's not going to land. And that's kind of what we are seeing. And this is the slide that I want to talk about that connects us, right? So there's another aspect to looking at a customer, right? And that's across the lifetime journey or customer lifetime journey, which is it could span their whole life, right? Since the time they're born until the time they retire, or even after that. And I think for me, one of the places where it stood out was in insurance, because that's how insurance views you. They look at you as a person and not just a demographic segment. You are a person that moves through moments in life. And as you move through moments in life, your context changes, your emotions change, your needs change, right? And like you might be, starting work or buying your first asset or building a family. Anyone who's experienced that knows how much your life can change, right? You actually mature through these stages. And yeah, I just want to talk about this project, right? So when we It was a few years back, the 2022, I think. 2022, yeah. And we had like a 4-day workshop in person, and we're trying to figure out how to map this thing, right? And we wanted to map out a customer's lifetime journey from the point where they became 18 and they were eligible for these products to the point where they retired. And we looked at the different life stages, the different sub stages. We looked at observable triggers, things that we could understand about them based on the data that was available. We looked at non-observable triggers, things that we want to understand about them and how could we actually solve for that. And we also looked at the data points that were available to us, right? And we kind of benchmarked the product offering to those different stages. And I thought that was quite interesting. It was really a moment for me where I started to see how a large organization starts to think about customers or starts to understand customers more, but at scale, right? And we don't see that often. Okay, so I'm going to go to a question quickly. Oops. Okay. Have you ever had a brand personalize something and it felt really creepy? Go, great.
Like it's not. I don't think it's one particular thing, but like naked insurance, like it really gets to me. Like the ads,
Just the marketing.
like the marketing really gets to me.
I find what I'm becoming less appreciative of is if I go onto a website and I look, like maybe I Google something or I go onto a website of a brand or product, and then the next thing on my Facebook thread or something like that, I'm getting adverts. You know what I mean? So what that signals to me is that without my knowledge or my consent, whatever data was collected from my interaction with that website was then sent to a third-party advertiser, who's then using that data to advertise to me. So first of all, it feels a little bit creepy because you think, well, how did they know? And how they're connecting the website that I went onto to my Facebook page. You know what I mean? And that feels a bit intrusive and it feels a little bit deceitful.
And where are the settings to change that? Because it seems like it's automatically enabled on every system that you use.
Well, you just don't accept cookies.
Yeah, I was just about to say
Yeah.
the cookies pop up that you just accept quickly without thinking about it. We have a hand online, Ikening.
Yes. Okay, mine there's two case studies, right? Well, first one is the one that happened with Target, right? True to their name, it so happened that there was a 17-year-old who was shopping for things, and their model actually detected that she was pregnant before anyone knew. So they then sent out a catalog with baby items, and then the father tried to sue Target, right? And that was all the way in 2016. And it so turned out that she was indeed pregnant. So for me, I think the creepy line becomes, and one of the speakers mentioned it, the creepy line becomes the fact that these models are getting so wonderful at their job that there's no barrier between what I'm thinking versus what I'm saying and what I'm seeing online, because you might be thinking of something, you might not have mentioned that thing, but lo and behold, you will see an ad that is eerily close to that product that you were thinking about. So I think we are in that space where a lot of prescriptive models are running on so many data points that they are able to draw out a very vivid picture of what you need and what you will most likely respond to. And that is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I've heard of that before. Actually, at the conference, someone mentioned it, so I was quite surprised.
Yeah.
Anyone think?
One of the things that gets to me is brands interacting on social media like they're people. So you'll often see on like TikTok or Instagram comment sections that brands interact with content, whether like generally good content. Like they never insert themselves in like negative contexts. But any brand that like gets involved in providing commentary on things that are happening. So whether it's like pretending it's a person and say like, I don't know, I can't think of a single example, but it will be like a person posting about their personal experience with something, or saying like, oh, you know, like I sleep really well when it's completely dark inside, or something like that. And then you'll see all of these like, I don't know, blackout blinds or pillow companies or, you know, whatever it is, like melatonin companies being like, oh, like, do you want us to send you something? Like, I really like feel the same way. And it's this kind of like uncanny valley of brands or businesses creating the perception that they're individuals to like build goodwill or build rapport with their customer base, or trying to like lock in and like kind of attract a new customer base based on how funny their comments are or how relatable they are. It's like that's kind of crazy.
It doesn't feel genuine.
No, yeah, because like how could it
It's
be?
transactional.
Yeah.
I don't know if this counts, but the spam calls for me, like clientele legal, that's one of them. And then when brands WhatsApp me, like you use my WhatsApp to like market to me, that feels like it's crossing the line.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think the reason why it feels creepy, right, is because context matters, right? And it matters more than the content. Because if the wrong message comes to you at the wrong time, it just sounds like noise, and you might swipe it away, you might get irritated, you might just, I don't like this, you know. But when the right support comes at the right time, it's actual value that you see. And yeah, go become.
Which is also what different media mean to people. So if I go onto Facebook, I've got a certain expectation of the content I'm going to get. And when I keep receiving these ads, it feels wrong. It's like I didn't go onto this platform to see ads. I came onto it to see content by my network or my social group or the groups that I follow. So I think you're absolutely right. Context matters. It's, you know, it's you know, Facebook. I mean, I know Facebook is outdated, but anyway, Facebook is where I go for a certain experience, and it's not to receive ads for stuff.
I had an ex-colleague that spoke about a brand being totally tone deaf during COVID when everybody was in lockdown, and she was constantly being sent flights, travel ads. And she was, how tone deaf can this brand actually be? We're in lockdown.
I keep on, okay, this is a Vodafone specific one, but I get told that I can save on electricity if I load up on VodaPay, but my meter number does not work on VodaPay. I still get that. I get that message multiple times, and I just have to ignore it.
I just want to double check. Ikaning, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Old hand. Sorry.
No problem.
Sorry, I just like I had a thought. I remember it's like it must have been at the beginning of the year. I was on a banking website, and when I was looking at the pictures, one was an AI picture. And I thought to myself, like, this is the last thing that I'd ever expect from a bank. Like the trust that like you have in a bank is to show real people, you know, like, and those little indicators, like, why would you use AI like to show people on a banking website? Like, people care about their money and they want to see real people.
The designers are probably under pressure in the execution level and being told to use AI. Stuff. That's probably why.
There was a message online as well. I just quickly want to read it. Also, certain brands or services make it a task to unsubscribe to promo emails.
Yes. And that could be considered a dark UX pattern. Sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Dark patterns. Yeah, he also just immediately said dark patterns, definitely.
Cool. So I'm just being cognizant of time, so I'm going to skip a few slides.
Still have.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to show you a tangible example presented in a terrible way. This don't yeah, and okay, you don't have to read, don't worry. Yeah, so this was trying to put down on a slide what my experience was when I flew down to Cape Town for this conference, right? And I thought it would be a good example because, look, largely the experience that I had was my own fault, my own lack of planning. But there's simple, but there were moments where the data that I've given to certain companies could have increased or improved my experience, right? So firstly, I was waiting for my hotel booking before I booked my flights. And that only came a few days before the actual event, which meant I had to go now look for flights, and flights from Joburg to Cape Town are ridiculously expensive. So I needed to now make a decision. Do I go on the super early flight because it's cheaper, or do I pay a lot and go on a later flight? But because I had a workshop scheduled, and I think it was around 10 o'clock at the conference, I decided, let me do the earliest flight that I can find, which meant I had to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, catch an Uber, go to the airport. I just got there in time to check in my bags and then get through the sort of boarding gate. And I skipped breakfast because of that. So I was hangry, you know. I also have a certain preference, dietary preference as well. So I didn't find any restaurants that sort of serve that. So I thought, okay, cool. The flight's gonna kick off soon. Let me just get to Cape Town. So I get into the flight. The snacks that they offer me, muffins and Kit Kats, and nothing of nutritional value except for nuts. But I wasn't interested in having nuts. So I said, it's fine. I'll get to Cape Town. Maybe I'll see something there. So I get to Cape Town. It's super cold. It's rainy. It's miserable, and that's not the Cape Town I remember. I love Cape Town's weather when it's sunny, but anyway. So I said, okay, cool, it's fine. I'll call in Uber. I'm not too far away from the conference. I'll just have something to eat there. So I jump in the Uber. We hit peak time traffic. I'm sitting for 1.5 hours, and I'm like, I could have fixed this myself, but my systems could have also fixed this. Or help me make better decisions. So if you look at the brands that held pieces of my data or my context, right? Discovery has my health data. They have my purchase behavior. They also have policy details about me. So they know certain things about me that other people don't. Then I book my flights through Discovery, and they utilize their reward system. And I chose FlySafe because I have the best experience with them. I think they stand out overall from all these brands, yeah, because they actually have contextual, or what seems like contextual experiences. I quite enjoy FlySafe. And then Uber, I think Google had all my scheduling. It had my traffic information. It also had, what else? Weather as well. So if I had an idea of traffic, if I had an idea of the weather, if I had an idea of price, I could have made I could have made way better decisions and had a better experience. I wouldn't have scheduled my workshop to be in the morning. I would have scheduled it a bit later, just get a later flight, and yeah, have a much better experience. And that's why I think the missed opportunity is that there's no one connected experience, right? There's no layer that's orchestrating this connected experience of context. So I think where we head is actually an intelligent system where modern customer experience will be determined by multiple different things. Not exclusive or not exhaustive to what I've put on the screen here, but search, personalization, forecasting, trust, AI, behavior data, etc. These are the things that will move our understanding of customers. And if we can crack it, we can actually deliver better contextual experiences. At any given time, I try to like create a slide to put my thinking down on visually, right? But if I had to simplify it, you can't even see the boxes, okay? Accessibility, something to think about. Okay, so if we think about the long-term customer life cycle, right? Where I spoke about life stages and all of that. That's a very complex piece of mapping. We have a lot of different data inputs. We have a lot of expertise that goes into something like that, right? But we can't possibly map a sequential customer journey end to end across 65 years. It's a waste of time, right? But what we can map is every single time we interact with that customer, right? And what I'm trying to say here is that every time we interact with them, we need to understand their life stage, the moment that they're experiencing, the task that they want to achieve, and what decision they are trying to make. Secondly, we need to interpret the intent. What are they actually trying to do? And what's the sort of, what are they actually trying to do? And where should we direct them? Next, we want to reduce the decision making, right? So what complexity or uncertainty or effort could we remove that we can identify? And what can't be identified? We need to ask those questions. And then deliver the right support. So again, don't be creepy. We deliver value to them, not more banners, not more content, just the right thing when they need it so they can make a decision faster. And then we measure. We learn from that outcome and we measure and we constantly iterate our system that we're trying to build. So for me, I think this is something that when I talk about in the boardrooms and stuff, it sounds magical and it sounds like it's not my department or it's too big. It's too big of an idea. But I think now this is kind of where AI comes into play because AI can actually orchestrate everything that we've sort of set up. The downfall is if you have disjointed systems or we still work in silos and you don't have a good understanding of your customer, you will just accelerate a bad journey, bad inputs. But if you get everything right, your data, your understanding of customers, you get the organization to co-create and collaborate, right, and focus on customer, you can accelerate better journeys going forward. So we've touched on conceptually a technology that could change the surface level, right? But there's another aspect that's very important, which is the behavior of the organization. And that's something people are hesitant to challenge, right? And as designers, I think, I don't know about any of you, but when I am faced with a problem, I always want to start from scratch. I redesign everything. So I make sure that every design decision was thought through, right? Instead of inheriting decisions and debt from other designers or other people before. So the behaviors that have to change, right, is do teams share customer understanding? Do they work across silos? Do they test earlier? I know a lot of places don't have access to customers, so they can't test. They don't have budget allocated to doing research. Do they make decisions closer to customers? Why are smiling?
Pain point.
Yeah, the pain point. Do they connect the data to real needs and do they measure outcomes? And then iterate, bring it back into the business, right? Yeah, I think overall, right, contextual experiences are not created by a single tool or a single software that's going to just change everything and magically make your organization mature or customer-centric. It's created by how a organization behaves and responds to it. So if your organization can actually unlock the value of technology because of how it behaves. And this is why I believe UX needs to move upstream and we need to be part of different tables. Now, just to justify what I'm saying, right? There was a report released by IDEO called the IDEO IQ. And for those of you who don't know who or what IDEO is, it is an organization that became globally famous for popularizing design thinking and pioneering human-centered design back in the day. So these are the people we learned about and the people we look up to when we try to do our jobs. And what they're saying is that design maturity is behavioral, and it shows up in how the organization actually works. And they describe it into five perspectives. No, sorry, five different behaviors. So perspective is the ability to look beyond your category and anticipate changes. This is talking about looking beyond your business unit and not working in silos and understanding the business, right? Ownership is whether teams have enough autonomy to act on what they learn. Places with a lot of red tape and approval layers tend to move slower. But if you have autonomy and you can actually make decisions, you can actually make a lot of progress. Wavelength is how well teams work across functions instead of protecting silos again. And then experimentation is whether organizations test early instead of waiting until everything is perfect, which was the old me. And then resonance is where the customer understanding is embedded into the actual business decisions and not just used as marketing language. So what I like about this is that it moves design out of the design department. And it says the ability to create better customer experiences depends on how the organization behaves. So yeah, do we have, a question you should ask your organizations, right? Do we have the behaviors that allow technology to create value? Now, that's a lot of talk. This is the impact, the business impact behind it, right? And what makes it powerful is that it's linked to performance. So companies, so when they ran this report, it was, I think, with 100 different companies and leaders that they spoke to. And companies in the top 20% reported nearly 3 times the revenue growth. And they also reported close to two times the customer growth and significantly higher annual profit. So this moves behavior of an organization from being a design philosophy that we try to punt because we're not at the right tables into a business argument. How a company operates can be a predictor of business performance. And that matters a lot in the AI conversation because AI success is not only about access to technology, and it also does not create maturity, but it does benefit from maturity. Okay.
There's just a question on the slide.
Sure.
Was that revenue growth and customer reach, were they able to isolate it to their product experience or a particular, it could be just their product range changed or the marketing environment or something, or did they specifically isolate it?
They were more talking about the behaviors. I don't know if they specifically isolated it, but I'll share the link with you. I have it, it's on this deck as well. I'll share it with you. Okay, the last section, because people are starting to yawn. I don't know if you I think this is the most valuable section. How do you answer this question? How does design become strategic again? I think we are going to evolve as designers, right? But we're not just going to evolve into business analysts or developers or front-end developers, etc. I think we need to expand beyond execution. And what I've noted down here is that we need to start to become customer intelligence translators, using research data and behavioral signals to understand customers more deeply. We need to also become systems thinkers, and I'm sure a lot of you have started to do that. But when you start to thinking systems, you start to understand the inner workings of how that system has been constructed and how you can actually pull the right levers to change it. You have to also become a design maturity advocate. I think this, I think overall, if anyone understands how UX maturity works, right, you you are aiming to get the customer to a point where they practice human-centered design at a certain level. So if you just embody this as a designer, you will automatically start to ask different questions and move a little bit differently, right? And you won't be constrained to that box. I think overall, just be an advocate for your craft. And then cross-functional learners, I think here we don't want to become experts. We just want to be fluent so we can talk to people in different streams and connect the dots. Experimentation catalyst. This is a big one because I think in large organizations, there's a lot of red tape around getting new tools and software to mess around with, right? And it's a space where I haven't really figured it out yet because we are still waiting on licenses for Claude. But what I can do in my own time, at my own expense, is actually download these things and play with them and see what they're about. Claude helped me with this deck, but it's also exhausted all my tokens in one go. So yeah, cool. And then I think the most important one is a strategic business partner. Your end goal should be this, right? You need to have that goal in mind. We need to get to a point where you can connect these customer needs to business outcomes and be at those tables. These people are humans and we understand humans. That's our superpower. Okay. And a practical way we can do that is to start asking better questions. So when you are in projects, start looking at, what's the context we're missing? What decisions are we helping with? I know I always ask people, what is the job to be done? I'm sure you also do that. But when I do that, people tend to go quiet and then they start to think. And they start to think differently and we start to unpack things differently. So yeah, I'm not going to read all of these. I just want to be cognizant of time. But start to ask different questions. It will move you out of your space. People will start challenging things and they'll start to think at a different level. And that would help you, just increase the value perception of design. And then overall, I think don't try to own everything. It's unrealistic. You're just one person. But connect what other people must, right? And I think a lot of these are the things that need to connect, which is the customer context, technology capability, the operating behavior, execution, which we already excel at. Trust is a huge one in our local context. And then finally, business outcomes. So we get the buy-in from business. And that's the end of my presentation. I think, the future advantage, it will come from people who understand people best. And that's what we do. That's our profession.